Okay, so you're thinking about maybe becoming a medical device engineer, like
Yeah.
actually building the next generation of life-saving tech.
Wow.
That's got to be exciting.
Yeah.
We know it's a hot field right now and for good reason, but it's also, it seems like, pretty demanding.
Hmm.
So we're doing a deep dive today on these RoleCatcher resources that you shared to like really make sure you have the full picture, like even beyond the typical job description stuff.
Yeah, what I think is so fascinating about this field is just how broad it is.
Yeah.
You know, you could be designing something as tiny as like an implantable sensor
Wow.
or something as massive as like an MRI machine.
Oh, wow.
And this career guide really emphasizes, finding your niche, finding your specialization early on.
They say the field is growing at around 6% over the next decade. I'm guessing that's got to be driven by all the, like, crazy advancements in medical technology that we keep seeing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about things like, artificial intelligence and machine learning and how that's impacting healthcare. It's incredible.
Right.
And an aging population also plays a role, right? More people needing more advanced medical care
Mm-hmm.
means higher demand for the engineers who design those solutions.
Yeah.
And that, translates into hopefully promising job security for you and even potential for salary growth, especially if you can like specialize in one of those really like high demand, like niche areas.
Okay, so that's good. Good for the wallet. Job security, it's good.
Yes. Yes.
They did mention long hours and strict regulations as downsides, though.
Yeah.
So not exactly a walk in the park, right?
Yeah. Right. Precisely.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to remember, this isn't just engineering, right? This is healthcare.
Mm.
The stakes are incredibly high. And that's why this guide, I think, really stresses knowledge of medical regulations and risk management,
Oh.
alongside, of course, your technical expertise.
So it's not just enough to build something that's like cool and cutting edge. It has to be safe. It has
Yeah.
to actually be effective.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. They actually listed some examples. Like they mentioned things like pacemakers, prosthetic limbs, even surgical robots.
Yeah.
That's wild. Like imagine designing a robot that could like perform these really delicate surgeries
That's incredible.
with incredible precision.
It's not just sci-fi anymore. It's becoming a reality.
Right.
And that's, I think, what's so exciting about this field is like you could be a part of those groundbreaking advancements. And this guide also talks about, the importance of staying updated.
Okay.
Conferences, publications, you name it. It's all part of the job.
So it almost sounds like you have to be a lifelong student,
In a way. Yeah,
which I know you enjoy.
I do. I do.
Speaking of learning, they go really deep on education in this guide. And they say, obviously, biomedical engineering is like the most obvious choice.
Sure.
But they list mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, even computer science as like relevant fields.
And that's because medical devices these days are becoming increasingly complex, right? You're integrating software, you're integrating electronics, sophisticated materials.
It's very interdisciplinary.
It's truly interdisciplinary. Like, think about it. We use apps on our phones these days to track our fitness, right?
Right.
Now imagine applying that same technology to something like a pacemaker.
Oh, wow.
That allows doctors to remotely monitor a patient's heart rhythm
Wow.
and adjust the device settings as needed. Like, that's the kind of integration we're talking about.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
And they even have like a whole interview prep section in this guide,
Oh, wow.
which I thought was interesting. And one of the sample questions they give is, how do you approach risk management in medical device design?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's not exactly your average interview question, you know?
No, it's not. But it speaks to the critical thinking, the problem-solving skills that are required in this field. Because you have to remember, you're not just building a widget here. You're potentially impacting someone's health, their well-being. Every decision you make matters.
Wow.
Every line of code you write, every material you choose, it all has to be carefully considered because the stakes are so high.
This guide is jam-packed with information. I mean, they even list like alternative job titles.
Okay.
Things like microsystems engineer or optical engineer. Who knew there were so many different options within this like already specialized field?
It's a great point, and I think the key takeaway here is that becoming a medical device engineer, it's a journey, not just like a destination.
Okay.
Continuous learning, specialization, and really a passion for improving healthcare, I think, are absolutely paramount.
And speaking of the work itself, this guide really dives into the nitty-gritty of what a medical device engineer actually does on like a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And it's not just about designing these cool gadgets and, coming up with these innovative ideas. It's about understanding how those gadgets actually fit into the larger, more complex world of healthcare.
Right. And they emphasize the sheer breadth of responsibilities that you might have as a medical device engineer. Like, you could be designing a new type of prosthetic limb one day, and then the next day you're figuring out how to mass produce that limb while maintaining, the highest standards of safety and quality.
Talk about wearing a lot of different hats.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
They also mention potential interactions with hazardous materials, like you might encounter that in this role.
Oh,
So safety is clearly a big, big priority in this field.
absolutely. And that's where, a deep understanding of medical regulations and standards comes in. You need to be on top of things like device safety, risk management, even basic anatomy and physiology.
Wow.
Because, again, you're not just building a product, you're building something that could potentially, save or improve someone's life.
It sounds like it requires incredible attention to detail.
Absolutely.
Like one tiny error could have huge consequences.
Exactly. And that's why, the guide also stresses meticulous testing and quality control. It's a huge responsibility.
Right.
And it's not just, about the testing. They emphasize the need for designing, evaluating, coordinating production, developing those test procedures. I mean, you name it, it's a lot.
Wow. Okay, so we've established it's a lot.
It's a lot, but it's rewarding.
They break down the specific skills and abilities needed to succeed, and it's quite the list. Like, they mention things like equipment maintenance, repair, troubleshooting, which makes sense. It's a very technical field.
It is very hands-on.
Yeah.
And don't forget about reading comprehension.
Oh, okay.
You're going to be poring over technical documents, research papers, and of course, all of those really important, very detailed medical regulations.
They also emphasize critical thinking.
Yes.
So analyzing problems, weighing different solutions, making these really sound judgments, and often under pressure, right?
Absolutely. It's about understanding the why behind every decision that you make.
Okay.
Anticipating, potential issues before they arise, and not just blindly following, a set of instructions.
Mm.
You have to be able to think on your feet.
Right.
And be adaptable and be a problem solver. And it's not just about, having that really analytical brain. They also talk about observation skills.
Oh, okay.
Being able to spot patterns, notice if something's off, those discrepancies.
Right.
Almost like a detective for making sure everything's running smoothly,
That's interesting. And they actually try to quantify these different skills and how often you're using them.
Yeah.
And it says that equipment, maintenance, repair, and troubleshooting, that comes up 57% of the time.
Wow.
That's more than half.
Yeah.
So you're definitely going to be very hands-on in this role, it sounds like.
Absolutely, yeah. You're going to get your hands dirty for sure.
So what's fascinating is that they say reading comprehension comes in at 54%, and then critical thinking and operations monitoring both at 52%.
Interesting.
So it's really highlighting how medical device engineers need that balance, right? You need the practical skills,
Right.
but you also need that really strong analytical mind.
You got to have both.
Yeah.
You can't just be good with your hands. You got to be good with your head too,
It's like being a surgeon and an architect.
Right, exactly.
But for medical devices, it's yeah, you need that precision, but you also need the vision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk knowledge domains, because it's not just general engineering that you need to know, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, they say that 74% of the time you're using mechanical knowledge.
Yeah.
So how machines work, how to fix them, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got the digital side of things, right? So computers and electronics, they say those are relevant about 66% of the time.
Which makes sense. I mean, we're living in a digital world. Medical devices are not exempt from that.
No, not at all.
Knowing your way around software and hardware, even programming, that's becoming pretty essential, I would say.
It is. And it's not just about, knowing how to code or anything like that. It's about really understanding how computers can be applied to these life-changing medical solutions.
Yeah.
You're speaking the language of computers.
Right.
But you're also understanding how they can actually be used to improve people's lives in a very real way.
Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. They also emphasize in this guide the importance of education and training knowledge.
Oh, interesting.
So wait, hold on. Not only do I need to be an engineering whiz,
Right.
but I need to know how to teach other people too.
Well, think about it this way. Medical device engineers, they often work in teams, right? So you're collaborating with other engineers, with scientists, even with healthcare professionals. You might need to explain a complex new device to a colleague, train someone on a new procedure, or even educate patients on how to use their devices safely and effectively.
Okay, so it's not just about being the technical expert in the room. You
Right.
have to be a good communicator,
Absolutely.
a collaborator, even, a leader in a way.
Right. You're leading through knowledge. You're leading through your expertise.
And it's interesting, they say customer and personal service knowledge comes into play 53% of the time.
Uh-huh.
You wouldn't necessarily think of like customer service as being an important skill in such a highly technical field, you know?
Right. But it speaks to the importance of empathy, I think, and understanding people's needs. Because ultimately, you're designing products for real people. And those people are often dealing with really stressful, sometimes emotional health challenges. So being able to connect with them on a human level is really important.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about the actual engineering knowledge?
Hmm.
Because that's got to be important too.
Oh, absolutely. That's listed as being relevant 57% of the time.
Yeah.
So that's the core of what you do. Designing that new prosthetic limb or figuring out how to improve an imaging system.
Right.
It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible in healthcare technology.
But it's not all, high-tech innovation. They also mention production and processing as being relevant about 51% of the time.
Yeah, it's that crucial link between the design and actually making it a reality.
Right.
Like you need to understand how things are made, how to optimize those processes, and how to maintain that really high level of quality every step of the way.
Right. So you come up with this amazing idea, but then you got to figure out, okay, how are we actually going to build this?
Exactly.
How are we going to make it, manufacturable?
Exactly. And on a large scale, potentially. Right.
Right. And then, of course, there's the business side of things. The guide mentions administration and management being relevant about 51% of the time as well.
Right. Because you're not just working in a vacuum.
Right.
You got to understand the business side of things.
So that's things like budgeting and leading teams, understanding how the healthcare system works.
Yeah, exactly. All of that comes into play.
It sounds like you need to be like a jack of all trades. You need that technical expertise, but you also need like people skills and business sense.
You got to have it all.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, but it's a challenging but incredibly rewarding path.
Okay, so speaking of paths, the guide actually lays out some potential career progressions for aspiring medical device engineers.
Yep.
So let's talk career ladders. What does that climb to the top look like?
So typically it starts with, those entry-level roles, maybe like an apprenticeship, where you're assisting more senior engineers, kind of learning the ropes, building up your expertise.
Right, getting your feet wet.
Exactly. And then as you gain experience, you move on to those more independent roles, maybe leading your own projects, leading teams, and so on.
So you go from like junior engineer to project lead, maybe even like chief technology officer one day.
Exactly. The sky's the limit.
It sounds like there's a lot of room for growth, which is exciting. What about like specializing? So, instead of climbing that like management ladder, what if you want to become like the go-to person for a very specific type of device?
Absolutely. And the guide mentions that as a common path as well,
Yeah.
becoming that specialist, right? Like you could become the expert in implantable devices or imaging technology or really any area that you're passionate about.
So you can really tailor your career path to what you're good at and what you enjoy doing.
Exactly. Find your niche, find your passion, and really go for it.
That's really cool. And I like how they emphasize no matter which direction you choose, you got to be continuously learning.
Yes.
Advanced degrees, certifications, just staying up to date on the research. It's like a lifelong pursuit.
It is, because this field is constantly evolving. Like you can't just rest on your laurels. You got to keep learning, keep growing.
They even list some specific certifications you can get, like the Certified Biomedical Equipment Technician, the CBET, or the Certified Clinical Engineer, the CCE.
Right.
And those can give you like a real leg up in the job market.
Absolutely. Those certifications, they're like a stamp of approval from the experts, right?
Mhm.
Like you've proven that you have the knowledge and the skills that are in demand.
So for someone who's just starting out, what kind of advice does this guide give? Because it can feel kind of overwhelming, like where do I even begin?
Yeah, it's a good question. They really emphasize internships, which makes sense. It's a fantastic way to gain that practical hands-on experience and start making those connections in the industry. So, co-op positions at medical device companies, at research institutions, hospitals, all great options.
Get out of the classroom, get your hands dirty, see how it all actually works in the real world.
Exactly. And it's not just about, learning the technical stuff. It's also about showing potential employers what you can do.
Yeah.
Like you're demonstrating your skills, your work ethic, your passion.
And they also mention things like research projects and design competitions.
Yes, absolutely.
Which can be amazing opportunities to, again, build your skills, but also to stand out
Yes, you're setting yourself apart.
from everyone else who's also applying for these jobs, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're showing that you're not just, going through the motions. You're actually passionate about this field. You're willing to go above and beyond. And even if you're not, ready for an internship yet, even volunteering at a hospital or a clinic to be really insightful.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And you get to see firsthand how medical devices are used, how they impact people's lives, and you're giving back to your community at the same time.
Right. It shows that you actually care about this field. And it's not just about, making money or having a cool job title.
It's about making a difference.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the guide itself, but let's talk about RoleCatcher as a platform, because they're more than just a career guide, right?
Oh, absolutely. They actually have this really cool feature called RoleCatcher.capture, which is a browser plugin that lets you save jobs from all over the internet, like LinkedIn, Indeed, any job site.
Okay.
And it keeps them organized in one place.
That's really handy.
It is, because then you're not juggling a million tabs trying to remember where you saw that perfect job posting. It's all right there in one convenient place.
Yeah, that's happened to me before where I'm like, oh, I saw this perfect job.
Right, exactly.
And now I can't remember where I saw
I
it.
know. It's so frustrating. So this eliminates that problem completely. And then once you've saved the jobs, you can use their board view to prioritize and track your applications.
Oh, cool.
So it's like a visual dashboard for your job search.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like a command center for your career goals.
Yes. I love that description. That's exactly what it is. And it gets even better.
Okay, how does it get better?
They use AI to actually analyze the job descriptions
Oh, wow.
and tell you instantly what skills the employers are looking for.
No more guessing.
No more guessing. You know exactly what to highlight on your resume. You can tailor your application to each specific job.
Okay, so that's really cool. And they call that the scored CV resume feature.
Exactly. And it could even highlight any skills gaps you might have so you can address them head on, maybe take a class or something like that.
Okay, so that's super helpful. But what about the interview? That's the part that I always dread, those nerve-wracking interview questions. Like, how do I even prepare for that?
Well, RoleCatcher has you covered there too. They have this incredible database of over 120,000 practice interview questions.
120,000.
I know, it's a lot. It's for all sorts of careers and skills.
Okay.
And they're all tailored to specific roles, including, of course, medical device engineer.
So where do you even begin with 120,000 questions?
Well, the AI comes to the rescue again.
Okay.
It analyzes your resume, it analyzes the job description, and it predicts which questions you're most likely to be asked.
Oh, wow.
So you can walk into that interview feeling prepared, confident, and ready to impress.
Unless, like, you want to throw up, which is always good.
Exactly,
Ish.
exactly. And with their Copilot AI subscription, you can actually record yourself answering those practice questions and get AI-powered feedback on your performance.
Whoa, wow.
So it's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cool.
Okay, so it sounds like RoleCatcher provides some really valuable tools and resources every step of the way, from finding the jobs to tailoring your resume
Absolutely.
to prepping for the interview.
I've got you covered.
But even with all the best tools in the world, networking is still crucial, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, building relationships is essential in any field, and medical device engineering is no exception. This guide actually stresses the importance of attending those industry conferences, joining online forums, even just reaching out to people for informational interviews. Like, it's all about making those connections.
Putting yourself out there.
Exactly. Learning from other people's experiences. And who knows, you might even find a mentor who could really help you along the way.
Right, because everyone loves a good mentor.
Everyone.
Someone to, like, show you the ropes and give you advice.
That's exactly.
Okay, so speaking of learning from others, let's dive into some of the more, like, specialized areas within medical device engineering.
Okay, let's do it.
Because we've talked about how broad this field is, but you can get really, really specific, right?
You can't. It's incredible. Like, you could focus on a specific type of device, like implantable sensors, surgical robotics, you name it. Or you could specialize in a particular area of expertise, like biomaterials
Okay.
or medical imaging.
Wow, so many options.
Isn't it exciting? You can really find that niche that aligns perfectly with your passions and your interests.
What about neurotechnology? Because that sounds fascinating to me, like designing those brain-computer
It's
interfaces.
science fiction.
It is. Or like neurostimulators, to treat things
Mm.
like Parkinson's disease or other neurological disorders. It's mind-blowing.
It's amazing how technology is blurring those lines between science fiction and reality. And the cool thing is, you could be a part of that.
That's so cool.
Right.
Okay.
Or maybe you're drawn to the world of the ultra small. You could specialize in microfluidics, which involves designing and developing these tiny devices that can manipulate fluids at a microscopic level.
Wow. What would you use something like that for?
I mean, think about things like drug delivery, where you could deliver drugs to very specific parts of the body with incredible precision, or diagnostics, where you could potentially diagnose diseases with just a tiny drop of blood.
See, that's the kind of stuff that gets me really excited about this field. Like, imagine the impact of being able to diagnose a disease so early
Incredible.
with just a tiny little drop of blood. That's game-changing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And those are just a couple of examples, right? Like, there are countless possibilities within this field, each with its own unique challenges and rewards. But one thing to keep in mind is that specialization, it often requires additional education or training.
Right. So you can't just like graduate with your bachelor's degree and say, okay, I'm a neurotechnology expert now. You probably need to do a master's degree, maybe even a PhD, or some specialized training programs, right?
Exactly. It's essential to really research the specific qualifications needed for your chosen specialty. And this guide actually does a great job of emphasizing the importance of continuing education, whether it's an advanced degree, a fellowship, or specific certifications. Like, that commitment to lifelong learning is absolutely key in this field.
It's a rapidly evolving field.
Constantly changing.
You got to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. You snooze, you lose in this field.
Okay, so speaking of staying ahead of the curve, let's talk about some of the challenges that medical device engineers might face.
Okay.
Because it's not all, robots and lasers and cool gadgets.
Right. There are definitely some bumps along the way.
There are bound to be some bumps in the road. So what are some of those challenges that people should be prepared for?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is just the need to constantly adapt and learn new things. New technologies are emerging all the time. Regulations are constantly evolving.
Oh, I bet.
And the healthcare landscape itself is in a constant state of flux, right? So you can't just like learn something once and then coast on that knowledge for the rest of your career.
Right. You got to be constantly reading, researching, going to conferences, like you said.
Exactly.
Just staying up to date on everything.
It sounds exhausting, but it's also what makes this field so exciting, you know?
Yeah.
You're always being challenged, you're always learning, you're always growing.
So you really need to be someone who thrives in that kind of environment.
Absolutely. Like, if you're someone who likes routine and predictability,
Mm-hmm.
this might not be the field for you. But if you're someone who thrives on change, who loves a good challenge,
We'll have to learn new things.
exactly, then this could be a really good fit.
And then there's, of course, the ethical aspect of it all.
Right.
And this guide emphasizes the importance of ethical considerations when you're designing medical devices. It's a big responsibility, knowing that the things you're creating have the potential to really impact people's lives, their health, their well-being.
It is a heavy responsibility, and it's something that you need to be thinking about from day one. It's not just about what can be built.
Right.
It's about what should be built.
Right. And how it's used.
Yes, and who has access to it.
Because we don't want to create a world where these life-changing devices are only available to the wealthy or the privileged, right?
Exactly. Ethical design means considering things like affordability, accessibility, and making sure that these technologies are available to everyone who needs them.
It's about using your skills and your knowledge to make the world a better place, not just to make a profit.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that really appeals to a lot of people who are drawn to this field. They want to make a difference.
But let's be real, it's not always glamorous, is it?
No, it's not all, robots and lasers.
This guide mentions that medical device engineers often work long hours, especially when they're facing deadlines or they're trying to get a product ready for market.
Oh, yeah.
So be prepared for some late nights, some weekend work. It's just the nature of the beast when you're working in a fast-paced, high-stakes industry like healthcare.
And those long hours can be really tough, but they can also be incredibly rewarding when you know that your work is making a real difference.
Yeah.
Like, you might be exhausted, you might be stressed, but then you see a patient who's benefiting from a device that you helped create.
Right, that's got to feel good.
And suddenly all those long hours, they seem worth it.
And it's not always about these, groundbreaking discoveries or revolutionary new devices, right? Sometimes it's about those smaller victories, like maybe you improve the design of an existing device, or you streamline the manufacturing process, or you just make a patient's life a little bit easier, you know?
It's those little things, you know.
Yeah.
It's about finding fulfillment in the day-to-day work, knowing that every task, no matter how small, it contributes to that larger goal of improving healthcare outcomes.
And this guide doesn't shy away from the financial side of things either.
Okay.
It mentions that, on average, medical device engineers earn a median annual wage of over $91,000.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, not too shabby at all. And keep in mind, that's just the median salary, right?
Right.
So with experience, with specialization, if you end up in one of those like really high demand areas, your earning potential can be significantly higher than that.
Absolutely. And, beyond the financial rewards, which are obviously important, there's something incredibly fulfilling about knowing that your work is making a tangible difference in the world.
Right.
You're using your skills, you're using your knowledge to alleviate suffering, to improve people's lives, and in some cases, even save lives.
It's a career path that offers, both financial security,
Right.
but also, like you said, that deep sense of purpose.
It's about finding meaning in your work, no matter what you do. And if you're passionate about healthcare, about innovation, and about using your technical skills to make a real difference in the world, then a career in medical device engineering might just be your calling.
I like that.
This guy doesn't sugarcoat it. It tells you the realities of the field, the challenges, but it also highlights that immense satisfaction that comes with knowing that you're making a real difference in the world.
So it's not for the faint of heart,
No.
but it's incredibly rewarding.
If you're up for the challenge, it's an amazing path.
Speaking of paths, this guide goes pretty deep on all the different educational routes that you can take to become a medical device engineer.
Okay.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, right?
No, not at all. I mean, biomedical engineering is the obvious one, right?
Right.
It combines biology, engineering, and medicine all into one.
It's all right there in the name.
Exactly. But they also highlight other engineering disciplines that can lead to really successful careers in this field.
Like what? I'm curious, what else is out there?
Well, mechanical engineering is a big one because you need to understand the mechanics of the human body to be able to design things like prosthetic limbs, for example, or surgical instruments.
Makes sense.
Then you have electrical engineering, which is crucial for developing all those electronic components that are in medical devices. Things like the sensors, the microprocessors, all the things that make these devices tick.
Right. And what about computer science? Because it seems like software is becoming more and more important in medical devices these days.
Absolutely. I mean, think about all the software that goes into a modern medical device.
Yeah.
You've got the user interface that doctors and nurses use to interact with the device.
Right.
You've got the algorithms that are analyzing medical data in real time.
Mm-hmm.
You've even got software that's controlling the actual movements of the device itself.
It's incredible how much brain power, computational power, is packed into these devices now.
It's really incredible. And it's the computer scientists who are at the forefront of this digital revolution in healthcare.
Yeah.
They're the ones developing the software that's changing the way we diagnose, treat, and manage diseases.
That's really cool. And the guide even mentions other fields, like they mentioned physics, materials science, chemical engineering, even industrial engineering as being relevant.
Exactly. And I think that just really highlights the interdisciplinary nature of this field.
Yeah.
You need to be able to draw upon knowledge from all these different disciplines to be able to solve complex problems and create these really innovative solutions.
That's what makes it so exciting, though, right? You're not just confined to this one, narrow area of expertise. You can really bring in all these different things that you're interested in.
You get to be a lifelong learner.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we've already established we like.
We're all about that lifelong learning.
Exactly. Always be curious.
And no matter which path you choose, they really emphasize the importance of a solid foundation in mathematics.
Absolutely. Because mathematics is the language of engineering. Whether you're analyzing data, modeling systems, designing algorithms, strong math skills are absolutely essential.
So if you're thinking about a career in medical device engineering, don't neglect those math courses.
Don't do it. You'll regret it. Math is your friend.
Okay, so we've talked about the different engineering disciplines, but let's talk about some alternative job titles, because I know when I was doing some research for this, I was a little overwhelmed. Is it medical device engineer, or is it biomedical engineer, or what is it? And this guide actually mentions a few alternative titles that you might come across in your job search, which I think is really helpful.
It is helpful because medical device engineer can be a pretty broad term that encompasses a wide range of roles. So knowing those alternative titles can help you better understand those job descriptions and see which ones really align with your specific interests.
Right, because sometimes they'll use these really specific titles and you're like, I have no idea what that means.
Exactly, exactly.
But then when you actually read the job description, you're like, oh, I could totally do that.
Exactly. Like I could totally rock that job. Why didn't they just say that in the title?
Exactly. So what are some of those alternative titles?
So for example, you might see a job title like microsystems engineer, which sounds very fancy.
It does sound fancy.
It does, but basically these engineers, they specialize in designing and developing miniaturized devices.
Okay.
So think really tiny sensors, actuators, those microfluidic chips that we were talking about earlier, all the things that are revolutionizing healthcare at like the microscopic level.
That's fascinating. Working with such tiny, tiny components that must require incredible precision and attention to detail.
Absolutely. It's a highly specialized field, and the work they do is truly groundbreaking. Another example is optical engineer. And these engineers, they specialize in the science of light and its applications.
So in the context of medical devices, what would an optical engineer do?
Well, they might work on things like lasers for surgery,
Okay.
fiber optic systems for endoscopy,
hmm
or even imaging technologies that use light to visualize the human body.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff.
It's amazing how even within the specialized world of medical device engineering, there's this whole other like layer of subspecialties,
I know, right?
all these different niches that you can explore.
And that's what I think makes this field so exciting. There's always something new to learn, new discoveries being made, new technologies emerging. You'll never be bored.
It sounds both exciting and challenging at the same time.
Absolutely. It's the best of both worlds,
So,
And I think that's what makes it such a rewarding career path for people who are passionate about healthcare and innovation.
speaking of like finding your place in this world, the guide highlights some key organizations that aspiring medical device engineers should definitely know about.
Oh, yeah, professional organizations, they're fantastic.
Yeah, tell me more.
They're a great way to connect with other people in your field, stay up to date on all the latest trends, and just have access to really valuable resources and support.
It's like joining a community of like-minded people
Exactly.
who are all passionate about the same thing, which is advancing the field.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And one of the most well-known organizations is the Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation, which is a mouthful, so we'll just call it AA.
Oh, hey, IMI. Okay, got it.
There you go. And they're a leading voice in the medical device community, known for their commitment to patient safety, obviously, but also technological innovation and professional development.
What kind of things do they offer?
Oh, they have a wealth of resources, including conferences, publications, certification programs. You name it, they've got it. Joining AMI is a fantastic way to connect with other professionals, stay informed about all the latest advancements, and just really enhance your own credibility within the field.
Okay, so if I'm serious about a career in this field,
Hmm.
joining AMI is a good move.
I would highly recommend it.
Okay. What about organizations that are a little more specific, like within medical device engineering? Are there any that focus on like a particular niche?
Yes, absolutely. The guide mentions several that cater to the needs of professionals working in specific areas. Like, for example, there's the National Association of Nephrology Technologists, or NANT, and they focus on the very specialized area of nephrology, which deals with kidneys.
So if you're interested in, say, developing devices for dialysis or other treatments related to kidney disease, NANT would be a good organization to be a part of.
Exactly. They provide resources and support that are very specific to professionals working in that niche.
Okay, so that's really cool that there's like this whole network, this whole support system within this field
There is. It's a very supportive community.
where there are organizations dedicated to every specialty and subspecialty.
Absolutely. It's like a big family.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have those broader resources that are available, like the Occupational Outlook Handbook, or UH, which is published by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics.
What's that all about?
So it provides a really comprehensive overview of different career paths, including medical device engineering, so you can learn about job duties, educational requirements, what kind of salary you can expect,
Okay.
job outlook, all that good stuff.
It's like a one-stop shop for all your career research needs.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're looking for a more global perspective, the World Health Organization, or WHO.
It's a great resource. Okay, so we were talking about the WHO and how they play such a crucial role in like setting these international standards for healthcare.
Right.
And that includes the regulation and safety of medical devices.
Absolutely, yeah, because it's not just about what happens here, right?
Right.
Medical devices are developed and used all over the world.
So understanding that global landscape of the field is really important.
Exactly, yeah, it's a global industry.
Yeah.
And then you've got the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO,
Okay.
and they develop international standards for a ton of different industries, healthcare included.
So what do those standards actually do? Like, what's their purpose?
Well, they help ensure the quality, the safety, and the effectiveness of medical devices, regardless of where they're manufactured or used.
Sure.
So it's all about making sure that patients everywhere have access to medical devices that are actually going to help them and not hurt them.
Right, because the last thing you want is for a device to be safe and effective in one country
Right.
and then, totally dangerous or ineffective in another country.
Exactly. It should be a level playing field, and these standards help make sure that happens.
It sounds like really important work.
It is. It's crucial, and it highlights how interconnected this field really is. You know, we're all working together across borders, across disciplines, to try to improve healthcare outcomes for everyone.
I like that. It's a nice thought.
It is a nice thought.
That it's not just about, making a profit or building the coolest gadget. It's about actually making a difference in the world.
Exactly. And, speaking of making sure that these devices are safe and effective, this guide also stresses the importance of understanding the regulatory landscape governing medical devices, which can be a little bit daunting, to be honest.
Oh, I bet. Because it's not enough to just have a brilliant idea for a new device.
No,
You can't just build it in your garage and then start selling it online,
no,
right?
definitely not. There's a whole process that you have to go through.
So walk me through that. What does that look like?
Well, in the U.S., the big dog is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration.
Right. They're the ones who decide what's safe and effective.
Exactly. And they have a very rigorous approval process to make sure that any new device that hits the market is both of those things, safe and effective.
So no selling your latest invention out of your basement workshop.
Not unless you want to get in big trouble.
Yeah.
And this guide really emphasizes how important it is for medical device engineers to understand FDA regulations.
Okay.
And it's not just a quick little crash course.
Right.
It starts from the initial design phase.
Oh, wow.
And it
Yeah.
goes all the way to
Oh.
manufacturing, labeling, even marketing.
Wow. That is a lot to consider. It's like a whole other layer on top of the engineering itself.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
But it's crucial because, again, you're dealing with people's health here.
Right.
So there was absolutely no room for shortcuts or for cutting corners.
And this guide does a good job of highlighting that balance, right? We've talked about how you need to be innovative in this field, but you also need to be incredibly responsible.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to find that sweet spot, pushing the boundaries of innovation, but doing it in a way that's safe and ethical.
Speaking of ethical, they talk a lot about the ethical side of medical device engineering in this guide. Because it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the impact it has on real people.
Right. Exactly. Like as a medical device engineer, you're in a really powerful position.
Mhm.
You have the potential to heal, to alleviate suffering, but you also have this tremendous responsibility to make sure that your creations are being used ethically.
It's not just about what can be built, it's about what should be built.
Exactly.
And how do we make sure that everyone has access to it?
Right, because we don't want to create a world where only the wealthy or the privileged have access to these life-changing devices.
Right, exactly.
So ethical design means thinking about affordability, accessibility, making sure that everyone who needs these devices can actually get them.
Okay, so this guide has been really eye-opening, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's not just like a dry list of facts about the career itself, It's given me a roadmap not just for the career, but for the kind of mindset that you need to really succeed in this field.
It's about purpose,
Yeah.
Like this guide reminds you that medical device engineers are part of something bigger than themselves. They have the potential to really shape the future of healthcare.
Okay, so for our listener out there who's totally hooked on this idea now, what are some concrete steps that they can take to actually break into this field?
Well, like we've been talking about, it starts with a solid education. You need that strong background in STEM, but practical experience is just as important.
Hmm.
So internships, co-ops, anything that gives you that hands-on experience, That's key.
Get out of the classroom, get into a company or a lab, see how it all works in the real world.
Exactly. And network, network, network. Go to industry events, conferences, join online forums, reach out to people for informational interviews. You never know where those connections might lead.
It's all about putting yourself out there, right? Showing your passion for the field.
Exactly. Oh, and of course, you have to ace those job interviews.
Right. Which can be nerve-wracking, but this guide has some good tips for that too.
It does. It does. Like sample interview questions, advice on how to highlight your skills, even what to wear to make a good impression.
It's all about the details.
It is. It is, especially in this field.
But beyond all the technical stuff, it's about showcasing your passion, your drive, your desire to make a difference.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Using your skills to make the world a healthier place.
It's not just about building devices, it's about improving lives. And I think this guide has done a great job of conveying that message. It doesn't shy away from the challenges of this field, but it also highlights the incredible rewards that come with this career path.
Absolutely. It's challenging, no doubt, but it's also incredibly rewarding. You're constantly learning, you're solving complex problems, you're working alongside brilliant, dedicated people, and at the end of the day, you're making a real difference in people's lives. I mean, what could be more fulfilling than that?
That's a great point to end on. So, to wrap things up for our listener today, if you're fascinated by technology, if you're passionate about healthcare, if you're driven by this desire to make a real difference in the world, then medical device engineering might just be the perfect career path for you.
Explore the possibilities, dive in, and see where this incredible journey takes you. You might just surprise yourself.